Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hope. My name is Tammy Lynn Connors, and this is my podcast and YouTube channel, Helping Other People Evolve. Today, I have the honor and pleasure of interviewing my new friend, Dr. Carl Stokes Jr. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for jumping on here.
Of course.
So just to let everybody know what Hope is, it is helping other people evolve. And what my mission and vision here is just to offer other people hope in their struggles. I feel like people go through this world feeling like they struggle all alone in so many things, but there's so many stories out there that have hope, and we don't struggle alone. And so what I just want and hope for, I say hope a lot, is for someone to be able to get out of bed that day, to hear a story that they're like, oh, I'm not the only one going through that struggle. And it might not be the same struggle that you're going through, but something may resonate in the stories that you hear. So I was honored to meet Carl a few months ago. I think it was in October we chatted through our friend Patrice. Yeah. And so he has an awesome story. He has two books that he has behind him there, Reclaim Your Visibility. And the other one is
It's my children's book, Daddy Loves Mommy, Mommy Loves Daddy.
Yes. So, and I haven't read that one, but I have listened to your Claim Your Visibility. I just said I listened to it again this morning. It's so good and powerful. So if you just want to kind of, I guess, go back to what your struggles were and then how you got to your strength, and, give us a little bit of, insight on your books. And I just can't wait to chat with you here.
Sure. Well, basically, my situation was kind of growing up. I'm from Buffalo, New York. So, growing up in pretty impoverished conditions. And my father, Carl Sr., right, was dealing with some pretty serious addiction issues.
Okay.
And because of that, all the things that come along with that was around, the struggles and things like that. So I kind of went through my childhood, wishing my circumstances were different in terms of my father kind of just being healthy and being around and being involved. Because when he got pretty bad, but he was still around, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Up until I was probably about 11 or 12. So, I started to realize as I got a little older and started to make friends, like outside of the neighborhood and things like that, I started to see that other kids' situation with their fathers is very different, more positive and things like that. So I started to, have unhealthy ways of coping, as a young person and things like that. And just trying to work through all of that. And then it got to a point where my dad kind of went away. We ended up my mother kind of had to move us away because things got too bad.
Okay.
And then, so I went from having my father around and him not being present to not having a father at all.
Okay.
And it was just really a struggle. And the crazy thing is, I promised myself, I said, when I become a dad, I'm going to do things right. It's going to be perfect. I'm going to just be the greatest of all time. I'm going down in the books as a legend,
Right.
And then I ended up becoming a father at a very, very young age. I was in high school.
Oh. And
I was 17 years old. And I got my little baby at my graduation picture in high school,
Yeah.
because I was young and I wasn't ready and I didn't have the guidance, and I ended up making mistakes as a dad,
Right.
and so then that become my new struggle, kind of having this lifelong dream to be the perfect father.
Right.
And if for some reason the main thing in my life that I needed to happen, it didn't happen, which again led to unhealthy coping mechanisms and self-sabotage and everything that comes along with it. So after kind of learning and growing and maturing and trying to work on myself, I decided enough is enough of this doom and gloom, enough of this feeling sorry for myself. And I looked to start making a change, you know, and I credit most of it to my wife, Hadeen, for just being a positive influence in my life, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to help me get some perspective and turn things around. And and I was really hesitant to have more children, you
Right.
know, because I felt like, you know, I have a child, and it never, the relationship never became what I needed it to become. And I was just like, why am I going to have more children? This is ridiculous. And so, you know, again, that was part of my healing
Right.
and kind of growing. And I'm so glad I did. So I had two more girls. I have all daughters because that's all I can do for some reason. I can only do girls, you know, and then I had the opportunity to figure it out with a foundation and a support system,
Yes.
and then start to really truly understand that role of fatherhood, especially Black fatherhood, you know, and then coming from where I come from.
Mm-hmm.
And so you know, I just spent the rest of my time just trying to be better, just trying to be better. And so what I ended up doing was, you know, writing Reclaiming Visibility. I wrote it as a a, a guide for myself back then.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I wrote it. I wrote it. If I could have read a book when I was going through what I was going through, it would need to be this book, and that's what I wrote. You know, so that's kind of how that came about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back a little bit to what you said because you know, it's awesome that you did what you did, but I kind of I really can relate. So when I was 13, my dad passed away from alcoholism. He actually drowned in our bathtub. And
Wow.
I remember shortly after that writing poems. And two of the poems I wrote was about addiction, alcoholism, how it will kill you. You know, it's either insanity, death, or jail, right? And I was never going to be that alcoholic. That was my mindset. Well, here I was, 37 years old, you know, drinking Listerine in the morning and shaking, you know, and here I was. So I like to share with people about that because when we're young, whatever, and we go through the tragedies and things, we're not planning on being like that.
Yeah.
It's just mostly, I feel like it's almost like our truth and our story that we tell ourselves. Like
Yeah.
it starts and then we don't know how to get out of it. So so was it that when you met your wife, is that when it kind of changed for you?
It is because I didn't have a lot of positive influences around me. And that's not knocking everybody in my circle, but just enough to get me to change, to focus, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we met, and I was in college at this time. We met in college, right?
Okay.
So and you know, what's interesting is that my daughter at the time was living in Atlanta, Georgia. Um, and I was struggling with that because I didn't know I had rights. I didn't know I had to say so because I didn't want that to happen.
Right.
And but because all I know is, you know, moms make all the decisions, you know, dads don't have any say, or dads are not around, or whatever the case may be. Once my daughter's mother told me she was moving to Georgia, I was kind of like, okay, like, you know, and I didn't, and it killed me ever since then that I didn't know I could have done something about that.
Right.
Anyway, so I met my wife. We were starting to get to know each other, and then I was explaining my situation to her, and she was, you know, very comforting and things like that. And she offered to babysit my daughter for the summer if I got her to Buffalo, right?
Okay.
Because, you know, I'm working my fast food job and stuff like that, so I don't have time to be a full-time dad. And that's kind of how that relationship started. The relationship started with her supporting me to that extent. So then I started to see that I could be better, you know, with the right, you know, support system and things like that. So, you know, just being around who's very family oriented. She just knew all the things that I never knew.
Awesome.
She understand the things I didn't understand, and she kind of helped to bring me up there, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mhm.
When I was listening to your book today, a big thing that stood out to me is, well, one of the big things, there's a lot in there, but when you talked about, how men treat women,
Mhm.
basically,
Yeah.
or, well, I mean, women treat men like that too, I feel like, but you talked about the cycle of like the abuse and all of that, and so when your book relates to me so much, being a mom, being a female, but it
Mhm.
still relates. So I really think your book is for everybody, because I grew up, with my father, like I said, alcoholic, abusive to my mother, and all of that. And then I ended up doing the same thing, like going into that same relationship. So I think that somewhere, somehow, we need to teach people, like your book is doing, that's not okay, and we need to learn to break out of that cycle. And I believe that's what your purpose is in both of your books. I don't know, like your
Yeah.
children's book, which I can't wait to get to. I'll read that too, because I think it's cool.
Yes.
So
No, you're absolutely right. And like I said, everything in the book. So this is what I tell people. I tell people is written to Black fathers or soon to be fathers, but it's for women, right? Because I to be honest with you, so many women have like, oh my God, if my dad had this book, if my husband had this book, if my brother had this book, and that's how it started to pick up steam initially. It was all women at first. You know what I mean? To be completely honest.
yes.
And so the kind of the straightforward approach of the book, because like I said, it was for me, for a younger me. Okay. And that's kind of how the things like the abuse and stuff, those are things that I went through. I experienced that as a young man, seeing the domestic violence in the house, and I just had a skewed picture of what fatherhood and being a husband and being a man in general was. So all the things in the book are, I use fatherhood as the vessel, but it was to address a lot of other things,
Yes.
a lot of
Yes.
other things.
Yeah, and you definitely do in that book. I mean, it's very powerful. And just to hear, where you got your strength and was able to overcome all of that, and now, how old are your girls now?
So my oldest is 24.
Okay.
My middle child is 17 and the youngest is 8. So I
8.
spaced
Oh,
them
okay.
out.
They're definitely
I
spaced
spaced them
out.
out. Yeah.
Each new learning lesson as you
Yeah. Oh
go,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. And to be truthful, I was too afraid to have stair step children because I'm like, I need to just focus on the one, move them along, and bring it up. That's my system.
That's awesome. No, hey, whatever works the best, right?
That was my system for sure. That's the
No,
truth.
that's awesome. So, if you don't mind me asking, did you struggle with addiction at all?
I did not,
Okay.
but I would like to share something with you that I don't really share with people.
Okay. Thank you.
So, as a young man, as I told you, I worked in fast food and all that, right? And I was going through the struggles of having this young baby and working in fast food, not having any money. My original plan out of high school was to go to the military. I was supposed to go to the United States Marine Corps.
Okay.
I end up hurting myself because I played basketball a lot, hurt my knee. Then I end up not passing my final physical. And then my life was just in shambles. I didn't know what I was gonna do, right? So my so my daughter's mother, I'm a kid. I'm like, I'm 18, 19 or something like that.
Right.
And so I got all this baby mama drama going on and all this whatever, because I just don't know what I'm doing, And so when my my daughter's mother decided to officially move on, she came over to I had the baby and she came over to pick up my daughter, and she had a guy in the car with her, and I lost it. I'm like, oh my God, And so I lived in an apartment building, and I just punched the glass, just boom, shattered my hand. My hand was just busted up. It balled up into like, you know. And so I went to the doctor. So my friend took me to the hospital because my mother was like, "Nope, you're an idiot. You handle it." You know. So I went to the doctor, and I'm in the emergency room. So the doctor lays me down, and he brings this like finger trap, and he puts my fingers in the finger trap and told me to let my weight go to pop my hand back in place, to pop the bones back in place. I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. He was like, oh, you'll do it. You'll get tired enough. So he had me in the finger trap. So I stayed up there and, you know, I'm just like, yeah, I'm not letting this go. There's no way. So he comes in after like a few, whatever, how long it was. He came in and he put a 50-pound weight on my arm.
Oh my gosh.
So I could snap back. And when I tell you, I got the strength of Jesus and I just did not let that thing go. I'm shaking. And I'm like, I'm not letting my hand snap. I'm not doing that. That's nuts. Oh. So the doctor comes back again. He's pissed because it's like late.
Right.
He's like, fine. So he goes out and he gets his huge needle and he jams my hand with the needle, numb me up. And then he just like pop and wrap me up. I was like, yo, you could have did that like an hour ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, and have me waiting on this finger trap. That's nuts. But anyway, so I say that to say this. That was excruciating. And he prescribed me big, huge, I don't know what they were, painkillers, right? Listen. Now I'm working, so I got a cast on my hand and it hurts like, oh my God, it was so bad. I mean, it was bad. And so I've taken the pills. The big horse pills. And I would go to sleep. But I tell you, I was getting the best rest ever in my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was going to work, working, and then I'm just anxious to go home because I want to sleep.
Right.
So I would work, I would go home, take the pills, boom, best rest ever. Get up, go to work, gotta leave, take the pills, boom. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And so one day I'm at work and my time to leave is coming and my relief is not there. And I'm like, yo, where's this dude at? I gotta go. And they're like, Carl, calm down. I'm like, man, F that. I need to go. I need to get out of here. Carl, what's your problem? Ain't not my problem. When I'm on schedule, I'm on time. My relief needs to be on time. And I'm like, I'm like raging. And then they're like, Carl, what is wrong with you? I'm like, nothing's wrong with me. And then I'm like,
wow,
something's wrong with me. And I'm like, and my mind is telling me I want to go home and sleep. But I think my body was telling me I need to go home and pop them pills.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because that's not my character. I'm in there like raging. You know what I mean? Like raging. And I didn't live too far from the place. So when I left, during that walk home, I said, yo, I gotta get those pills out of here, man. You know what I mean? So I went, I got home, I went upstairs and I flushed them and threw the bottle away. I don't even remember what they were, but I know they was putting me out like a light.
Right.
And I'm like, and then I started thinking about, you know, my family history and my dad and this and that. And I said, yo, am I like, how you say, like genetically predisposed to it? I didn't know, you know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, like I came and I'm like, nope, that's it. That is it. And so I dealt with the rest of my healing with no meds. And I just ate the pain, you know, and every time it would start to really hurt me, I just think about, I'd rather have this than wherever I was going. Cause it snuck up on me in a way that I never saw coming. And mind you, Tammy, let me tell you, I made it through my young childhood. I made it through high school. I never took a drink. I never hit the weed. I never did anything. And then I almost got hooked on pills.
That were prescribed to you.
That were legit prescribed to me.
Yes.
By the doctor. Yes. Yeah. So that's, you know, and I don't even really tell people that story like that. You know what I mean? But I realized what was happening based on everybody's response to me, like, Carl, what is wrong with you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And man, and then I just started thinking about everything, and I'm like, wow. And so so my whole abstinence thing just went hard after that, for real. Like now I won't even go near things. Like I cut friendships off for stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I didn't. So I say that to say, my bout with addiction personally was very small, but it was close.
Right.
And I stopped it before. Once I realized it was a problem, I stopped before it got to the point where I wouldn't been able to stop that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's,
I'm stressing, I'm stressing, I'm dealing with all this stuff. And it was, I couldn't sleep, and it was helping me sleep. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's what happened.
Yeah. And that, thanks for sharing that, because, a lot of people out there, I was just reading some things today about addiction. I know that this isn't about addiction, but kind of goes hand in hand with everything. Sure. But, so many people think that an addict is somebody that honestly like chooses it more, right? They don't realize, like, here you were just a kid with a hurt hand, and your doctor prescribes you whatever pain medication, you're taking it, and all of a sudden, if you don't have that mindset like you did from living what you lived, I mean, there's people out there that had a normal, say, household, childhood, everything, and then they're prescribed this. They're not, that doesn't get in their head like, oh, I grew up around addiction. This is what's happening to me. And then that's why we have all of this problem with the opiate addiction, honestly, is that, and people are like, oh, well, no, they choose it. And I'm like, it's such a big issue, but just hearing your story just proves that no, I mean, you were, thank God that the people saw that in you.
And not only that, but here's what I think about even to this day, and that was years ago. What if my relief had never been late?
Right.
Like what if they would have always came on time or early, and I would have just kept leaving, going home, going to sleep, boom, boom, boom. I had been doing it for however long I was doing it, however many days. But had that not come up, I would have just gotten to that routine, and it would have been worse.
Right.
I may not have been able to stop. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's where I like to say those are, I tell people, whatever you believe, I believe in God. Whatever your spirituality is, those are the little things that come into play that you're like, oh, because God made sure that person was late that day in order for this to happen for you. That's how I feel. It's kind of like when I got fired from my job, I shouldn't have went to work that day because I was very inebriated before I even thought about going to work. But God was like, no, you're going to work and getting fired today because you need to get sober tomorrow, So I feel like those things happen. There was something else I was going to talk about that I really liked that you said in your book. I'll think of it in a second. What about your other book, Mommy Loves Daddy, Daddy Loves Mommy, if I said it the right way?
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about that for the, people with kids that are going through?
Absolutely. So here's how it went, right? When I did, I released Reclaim Your Visibility, and I gave, and it's set up with steps, right? Practical steps, 12 steps for fathers to follow. Now, what happened was I started to work with a lot of dads, and then a lot of moms, in this, a lot of speaking engagements and a lot of things I was doing. And so I realized that, I'm giving all these steps, but I don't really have too much resources. Like I have the pledge and things like that was available from the book on my website, but I want to start thinking about kids. And so while I was telling fathers to do things with your kids, I'm like, it would probably be better if I had something I could give them. So now here's what I did. I said that would be cool if I did like a children's book. But what I did was I did a children's book, but it's not really for kids.
Okay.
The idea is, here, read this book with your kid, because it's examples of different family situations. Okay. So it's like, daddy loves mommy. He does this for her. Mommy loves daddy. She does this for him. So we'll talk about co-parenting. And then the book has a switch where it says, basically, you know, daddies can still love mommies and mommies can still love daddies, even if they don't live together.
Oh, so good.
So it starts all over again. Daddy loves mommy. He does this. That, you know what I mean? Just to include all kids in different situations. So my thought process was, I want you to read this with your child, and the things in here that may be addressed maybe applies to you.
Okay.
Because it's basically just different scenarios, right? For example, I just open a random page. Daddy loves mommy. He always treats mommy with kindness and respect. He is a great role model. He leads by example and teaches the children how to show appreciation for her. Whether mommy lives with us or not.
Right.
Right. So you read this with your child, and then hopefully it's like, oh,
right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I kind of snuck that in. And that just came from an idea, just from working with a lot of different families.
Okay.
And kind of seeing something that I thought might be needed. And I got a lot of good feedback. And it's, and sometimes people, they'll contact me and say, I feel like this wasn't really for the kids. So I said, well, keep that on the low for now. But right. That was kind of the intent, you know, because I want you to do, you know, use it to spend quality time with your kids and to read into all the benefits that come along with that. But also, let's get
you thinking.
That's right.
Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. So where can people get your books?
Everything is available at my website, drcarlstokesjr.com.
Okay.
And you know, Amazon, anywhere like that, you know, everything should be available as well.
Okay, awesome. So now, do you that's what I was going to ask you. Do you do counseling with people, speaking engagements? Do you do all those things, or? Yeah.
And I'll tell you, so I'm a social worker by trade. I teach at a college here in Buffalo, and I teach human services, social work. Right. Okay. So that's kind of my field anyway. And it's kind of how I gravitated, just based on my experience in life, and kind of just gravitated towards that type of work. So when I decided to write the book, whole nother avenues just started to come up, right? Yeah. And you know, that's when the speaking engagements came, and you know, the mentorship and stuff came, and the counseling services and stuff came. So it's like all of these things are related to, you know, to families, fatherhood, and all that, and it just started to come about like that.
Awesome. Yeah. So what I love about doing these stories is I love to hear. I don't love to hear about the struggles that somebody went through, but I love to hear that what someone took that struggle and turned it into a strength. You know, so many people out there feel it's I don't like to talk about it that much, but the victim mentality, right? Yeah. Well, I grew up with this. I grew up with this. I grew up with this. This happened to me. This happened to me. This happened to me. I can never get better. And that's all about what we put into our mind and our mindset, you know? And I feel like, and having good people in our lives, you know, like you said, your wife probably saved you. I mean, I don't know, but
it's not even close. She did.
Okay, it's not even close. She did save you, right? And it's important to have those people in that foundation in your life. But what I really like to talk about, because I feel like, especially with men, because I talked to quite a few men about reaching out for help and getting counseling and getting those things. Don't keep it to yourself, because our minds will take control, and the next thing you know, we're defeated again. But if you have somebody that you can talk to and express, it's okay. You know, I know like I talk about this too, like in my life, my mom was always like, keep it quiet. You don't have to talk to anybody. Don't tell anybody, keep it quiet. And I know men, I feel like you guys are taught, you know, you can't say anything because you're macho, and you know, what will people think of you? So if you can just, I mean, maybe talk about that a little bit, like with, especially since you're in social services and counseling, you know, that's awesome, or social work, that you know, if you could just share a little bit what you think about, you know, men and keeping it quiet and maybe talking to people.
So and I'm so glad that you even bringing this up, because it's so important. Even in my book, I dedicate a step to self-care. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because, you know, like you said, we grow up in this environment where we're taught to keep it all in. We have to hold our feelings down. We can't reveal to people what we're going through and things like that. And we suffer in silence a lot of times. A lot of times we're going out handling business. We handling everything else except ourselves. And, you know, I've been caught up in that many a times, you know, and I try to make a conscious effort to avoid doing that. So what people don't know is that there are a lot of men who are victims of intimate partner violence. There are a lot of men who suffer from eating disorders. There are a lot of men that go through these things that we automatically associate with women all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know what I mean? And part of that reason is just what you said. First of all, who am I going to talk to? Second of all, why am I going to show my weakness to anybody? Yes. I don't trust anybody. I don't want nobody making fun of me. I'm 6'5". I'm 300 pounds. I'm all muscle. I used to play football. Like, why am I going to tell anybody that I'm getting beat up at home? You know what I mean? Those kinds of things. And we're taught to just, it'll work out, you know, which it can. However, right? I think because we don't communicate as well or as frequently as we probably should, we don't even know that there are resources or people available.
Yes.
Right. And then if you add in the cultural component to that, as a Black man, counseling just wasn't a thing.
Okay.
You just don't do that. Like, first of all, that's telling your business to strangers, and we don't do that.
Right.
So when you look at it from that point of view, from that perspective, it becomes stigmatized, right? And then you way less likely to do it.
Right.
But as I got older and started to see the value in that, started to realize, wow, if I had somebody to talk to, mm-hmm. I could have avoided a lot of very difficult things just from having somebody to vent to. I didn't have anybody to vent to. And as I was writing that book, which was fairly difficult because I had to relive stuff that was happening.
Yeah.
And I'm writing a book and I'm like, man, I should have got some help.
Right.
Like, and I'm just now coming to that realization that I should have been getting some help.
Yes.
Back then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's bad, looking at it now, as bad as I needed help back then, that was the furthest thing from my mind. Correct. Looking to get some help from somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I hate to think how many people are in prison because they ain't had nobody to talk to.
Yes.
How many people are suffering from, you know, addiction because they ain't had nobody to talk to. How many people have driven themselves, you know, ill, physical manifestations of stress because they didn't have anybody to talk to.
Yes.
You know, and I think people really underestimate that, you know, and even me as a private person in general, you know, writing this book and having it for public was very difficult for me. So it's like, that's like my sacrifice. I had to come out of that. And if I can help one person, then so be it. And that's kind of, I had to kind of get over myself a little bit, you know, and because I see the importance of that. So I look at it like, if somebody is reluctant to talk to somebody, and if I can get them to read this book, that'll kind of open that up for them. Because I feel like my attempt was to make it masculine to talk to somebody, because I feel like it was associated with femininity, you know what I mean? Which is mind-boggling, because you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's kind of like I try to put the toughness back into, it's okay to talk to somebody. You know what I'm saying? Right. And I think that, you know, some of the feedback that I've gotten, I just felt so good for allowing people to kind of see that perspective of it and think of it that way, because and then you know, growing up and becoming the kind of person that people talk to, is just so funny how that came full circle. And the other thing is, I think we don't, especially as a Black man, I didn't think I could find another Black man to talk to. So I think that's another part of it. But again, I never looked, right? Because it wasn't even on my radar. You know what I mean? So what I try to do is kind of put myself out there and let people know that, you know, there are variations in who you can talk to. Like, everybody has the TV version of counseling, you know, the couch where you lay there and tell all your secrets, and the guy's just writing and probably not paying attention to you. Yeah. And everybody gets that visual, but that's not at all how it has to be. you know,
Yes.
or how it is in many cases. So I think it's extremely important, and I'm glad you brought that up because, man, it's how far talking things out can go for people. You know, so many people just make
Exactly.
decisions just because they didn't hear another perspective or think that there was another way.
Right.
You know, especially
Yeah.
if you don't have a lot of support, you feel alone, you know, or you're embarrassed or
Mm.
you're afraid. You know, you can go to a judgment free zone and get some actual feedback and
Yes.
help and resources and linkage and referral and all the
Yes.
wonderful things that's there to offer.
Yes. And here's what I love that you said too. This has been really good, by the way. I love that you said that if you could help one person and not, I kept my story to myself for a long time too, because the same thing, like embarrassment, like, oh, all just a lot of things, right? And then when I finally shared it, and I did have one person reach out to me that shared with me that they were an alcoholic and they were struggling. And then she's been sober like 5 years now, I think. But that story just helped one person. And then I thought, well, God gave me a gift to live through a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have. And shame on me for keeping it to myself, because he gave me that story so I could share it with others so that people, like you said, aren't struggling alone. You're not alone out there. And I think that's why hope came to fruition, because I just want people to know that they're not alone, and you don't have to do this alone. There's so many things out there and people out there that'll help. So
Yeah.
I love that you said that about, that if you can help one person, because that's what I feel like every time I
Yeah.
do a podcast. If I can help one person with this podcast, perfect. So
And the great thing about that is my minimum is I want to help at least one person, but that one turns into two, turns into four, turns into, you know what I mean? And it
yes.
just goes on like that. And that's what it's been like, since I jumped out of my comfort zone and put myself out there like that,
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
because I remember like, man, I don't know if I can do this, like I'm writing them like, oh, should I say that? Should I tell that? But I'm like, it doesn't make sense if I don't share the honest truth, because I have to establish myself as with some sort of credibility. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's not, the way the book is designed. It's not, I'm talking to you from experience, not from, this is what you should do because I read this in an article somewhere.
Right.
And I wanted to show that vulnerability. So soon as I start out, I just lay it all out there. Boom. This is where I'm at. This is what it is, and this is what I've learned. So if it can help you, please, follow that.
Yes, yes. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you jumping on here with me today. It's been an awesome interview. I'm doing my 50 States of Hope, so I will be coming to New York next spring. So
Yeah,
hopefully when that happens, I would love to, maybe we could set up like even a speaking engagement together or something
sure.
like that. That would
That
be
would be so
awesome.
fun. That would be
Yeah.
so fun. And can I before we go, can I just kind of lay out one more thing?
Yes, I was going to ask you
Um,
to go ahead and lay out one more
yeah,
thing. So
okay.
perfect.
So I wanna kind of just explain how and you oh yeah, and I did the audio version of the book because I know everybody's not really a reader like that, so that was
Right.
kind of like my other thing. But how it started from having concerns about how to become a better father, a better family person in general. What I did was I used um, reclaiming visibility as a catalyst to kind of help to bring my family even closer together, right?
Mhm.
So what I did was I actually got my girls involved, and
Okay.
and they started to do their own children's book
Oh,
about self-care. This is self-care everywhere, everywhere.
oh my
Boy version and girl
goodness.
version. Yeah. So the girls did that, and I'm just saying that because they watched me go through this transition, this process,
Hmm.
to use what I knew to try to help people, and then they jump right on that, right?
Okay.
And so it's become a family thing, right? So and if if anybody, you go to my website, you can see all my family members have pages with all the stuff that they're doing, because it stopped being just a me thing, and
Okay.
it turned into just an us thing. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
I love
So
that.
yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Yay. That's awesome. I can't wait. I'm going to get all the books. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
excited. So
Yeah.
awesome. Is there any last words that you'd like to say to anybody, before we wrap this up?
I would like to thank you for all the work you're doing. I follow you on social media and I see, and I'm like, man, this lady is getting around. She like, I'm in this state, I'm in this state. I'm like, yo, I gotta figure something out. I wanna go on tour too. But it's like I think what you're doing, I think just the whole idea of the 50 states and bringing people together. I'm so like blown away by that. I just wanted to tell you. So I'm honored that you felt I'm worthy of being part of
Uh,
part of the whole thing. So keep doing what you're doing. I'll be watching. I'm on the phone like, oh, she's at it again. Like, oh my god. So I think
Thank
that's great.
you.
I think that's
Thank you
great.
so much. And like I said, I say that God puts people in my lives for this. Who would have thought that? I mean, I didn't know you 4 months
Right.
ago, right? And
Exactly.
it's just,
Exactly.
put Patrice in my life to put you in my life. And I just feel it's like a rolling effect. And I'm super excited and blessed and honored to hear your story. I love your books. I can't wait for others. I'll put the link on, when the podcast goes. It'll be next week when I launch this one. I just
Okay.
haven't launched today. So Tuesday we'll have yours out there and I'll send you the links, and I'm super excited. So I hope that you and your family have a very Merry Christmas. And I know that 2022 is going to be a blessed year for all of us.
Yes,
So thank you
ma'am.
so much.
All right. Thank you.
Everybody, thank you for tuning in to Hope. I hope everybody has an amazing day.